Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. Now, what are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take live questions from the audience. However, we don't always have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in. And so what I like to do is to make sure that those questions get answered properly in a video. So we gather them up and we address them here in companion videos. And we do have a lot to get caught up on. We fell a little bit behind there. So we're going to get all caught up on the questions you guys sent in. So let's get things started. And we're going to start things off here with a question from an anonymous viewer who writes, new Hercules remake. Cast Zac Efron. He can sing if they go the musical route, and he has the physicality to pull off Hercules. Here's the thing. I am a Zac Efron fan. I actually think he is an underrated actor. I think he's quite good. And you're right. The dude can sing. Like, if you saw Greatest Showman and other stuff he's done in the past, but the dude can sing. And he's got an incredible physique. That said, I don't know. I mean, he's not a big guy. Like, he's a super in shape, muscular guy, but he's not a big guy. You know what I mean? And when I think of Hercules, I just think of a bigger guy, like 6'3", 6'4". But I don't know. They could find, look, the most important thing is you get a talented dude in the role. Zac Efron's a talented dude. All right. Sean writes, with the recent uproar between Universal versus AMC, and it's not Universal versus AMC, it's Universal versus all the movie theaters. It's them against NATO, the North American theater owners. AMC just happens to be one of the more vocal ones. It got me thinking, if Universal could sustain their own streaming service. I saw that Universal has about 15 movies released a year, with movies dating back to 1910. Do you think they could be successful? Well, I mean, Universal's already kind of, they're going to try their hand with the streaming service game, right? They're launching Peacock. What a stupid name. And yes, I get it. Their logo is the shape of a peacock. I don't give a shit. It's still a stupid name. Anyway, be that as it may, they are getting their hand in the streaming stuff. And you know what? They've got some nice stuff lined up. But it's not the type of thing that's going to generate the revenue to make the types of movies they want to make. So I don't know. They certainly have a very, very extensive library, and we're going to see how well they know how to leverage that with their new Peacock service. And it might become more of an attractive thing for them to maybe pull a little bit of Netflix, right? Where Netflix acquires and produces some of their own movies that they just make directly for Netflix. Maybe Universal, if Peacock can actually take off and sustain, and I think they got some nice stuff lined up. Maybe that's what they could do. Maybe they could produce some movies that are exclusively made for Peacock. Whether or not that will play out, we'll have to wait and see, but it's certainly an idea, and it's certainly something they're going to be keeping an eye on, Sean. All right, next up, 50 Shades of Geek writes, you and Aaron were struggling to find actors/characters who appeared on TV first, then transitioned to the movies. That happened with James Darcy, who played Edwin Jarvis on the Agent Carter TV show, then made a cameo in Avengers Endgame. Yeah, we talked about that actually a few weeks ago and on the show a little bit earlier today. But it's not like it was the Jarvis show. He kind of popped up in the background. I believe he had one line, and it was really more there as an Easter egg and kind of a wink more than anything else. It certainly wasn't have any impact on the movie itself, right? It's not like he played any kind of a role, but you're right. That little cameo was there, and that one is one of the glaring exceptions. You're right about that. All right, Willow writes, who'd have thought that Trolls 2 would become one of the most controversial movies this year? This movie is literally tearing apart the entire film industry. Well, I mean, yes and no. The big problem going on between the movie theaters and Universal right now really isn't Trolls. It's really the issue of the CEO of NBC Universal saying they want to experiment with releasing movies in theaters and on VOD day and date. That's the issue that movie theaters are having, because they've had a long-standing rule for decades that they will not play movies in their theaters that also release on home video of any form on the same day, because that's bad for their business. It would be counterproductive, and it would be self-destructive for them to do so. The Trolls 2 thing was really, though, it's not the issue, but it got everybody mad at each other. Like, we've heard statements from Regal, Cineworld, AMC, NATO, all condemning Universal for what they did. You haven't seen any of the other studios coming to Universal's side in this, and there's a reason for that. And it certainly did get the tension up. But that's not the issue. The issue really is the whole day and date releasing. And that's the part they've got to figure out. The Trolls 2 situation, though, certainly didn't help matters much. All right, James Ward writes, "Hey, John, I've been rewatching some Bette Davis movies, nice classics, as she is my all-time favorite actress. She's considered by many. By the way, her real name is Ruth, just so you know. But many people consider her to be one of the greatest actresses of all time. I think of her like Rob thinks of Grace Kelly. What do you guys think of her as an actress, and can you think of a favorite movie of hers? No pressure if you can't." I mean, Bette Davis is great. I mean, like I said, she had like a half a century career. I mean, when you talk about some of your favorites of hers, a lot of people will go to two films. They'll go to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and All About Eve. They'll go to those ones. For me, there's a movie she did in like the mid-30s, late 30s called Dark Victory that she did with Humphrey Bogart. That's actually my favorite. Now, look, I'm not going to pretend that I've watched every single Bette Davis movie. I have not. But I've seen a lot of the big titled ones, and Dark Victory is actually the one that stands out to me the most. All right, thanks a lot for sharing that, James. All right, next up, Julius A. Goodwin writes, "Let us say, Mr. Campea, that we both have a milkshake. You have a milkshake, I have a milkshake, but my straw reaches all the way, a little bit of There Will Be Blood here, reaches all the way across the room and even down into your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up." God, I love Daniel Day-Lewis. One of the greatest acted scenes in probably, look, I often say this and people get upset, but it's really what I think. And it's all subjective, but I think Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in There Will Be Blood is the single greatest lead actor performance in the history of film. I just think it is. I'm not saying I think There Will Be Blood is the greatest movie in the history of film, although it's excellent. I think that performance is simply the most powerful, kinetic, force of nature performances I've ever seen. And one of the big reasons why I consider personally Daniel Day-Lewis to be like the greatest actor of all time. And that I think he's the GOAT. I think Daniel Day-Lewis is the GOAT. So, and that movie has a lot to do with it. And that quote and that scene has a lot to do with it too. All right, thanks for sending that in, Julius. All right, Django writes, "Just saw Waves. Wonderful movie, man. We've talked about that one a lot the last few months. For the first time, and wow, what a beautiful yet tragic story that leaves you with a glimmer of hope. Didn't expect to love it this much. It's really heavy movie to watch, so be ready. But man, I love these smaller, independent, personal stories." And it's got the Emmy winner from This Is Us. Why am I forgetting his name? Why? He was also in Black Panther, and I'm freezing on his name. And I'm looking it up because I have to know it, because if I don't get it, I'm going to freeze. Sterling K. Brown. That's right. I love him in it. But the performances are great. Synopsis for those of you who haven't seen it. Waves traces the journey of a suburban family led by a well-intentioned but domineering father as they navigate love, forgiveness, and coming together in the aftermath of a loss. It is a powerful movie. It's a great example of somebody's got a story to tell, and their movie tells this story. It's beautiful and profound, and I'm with you, Django. I thought it was really, really powerful. Really good film. Dan Ketchum writes, "Theaters better have ironclad legal disclaimers. If you're talking about opening up, that's going to be one of the big things that movie theaters need to worry about right now is, like, we all want movie theaters to open, but they need to make sure that, hey, if somebody comes in here with coronavirus and they don't know they have it and we don't know they have it, they have no symptoms, and somebody else catches it from them in our theaters, are we legally liable?" Like, that's one of the big things that they have to work with. The legal departments of these movie chains have to work with the with government and lawmakers to make sure that they are covered, because they could be exposed really badly to legal liability here, and they've got to be very, very careful about that. All right, next up. Latin Shark 956 writes, "Do you think the number of AMC A-list subscriptions will go up in 2021 to 2022? Yes, I absolutely do. Their numbers just kept going up. Before the pandemic, it was just kept going up and up and up and up to the point that it was finally starting to turn a profit for AMC. And then the lockdown happened. I really do believe, yes, we are going to see those numbers go up. They may slow in 2020, even once the theaters open. But it's the best movie. It's the best deal in movie going. I mean, Regal has a fantastic stuff too with Regal Unlimited, but A-List is the best deal in movie going today. And so, yes, I do believe once we get into 2021 and 2022, I do believe we will continue to see AMC A-List membership rise. All right, Ben Rayner writes, I thought maybe we could make gingerbread houses and eat cookie dough. And then, this is from Will Ferrell, Elf, and go ice skating and maybe even hold hands, Ron Jeremy. Again, with the Ron Jeremy, I'm sure I'm going to be hearing this for several more weeks, several more weeks. But yes, that is, of course, from Will Ferrell and Elf, if I'm not mistaken. All right, let's see here. ZMG Ruler writes, Earth 20. John finds out through Ancestry.com that in fact that he is a distant cousin of Gary Gygax, creator of Dungeons & Dragons. And it's revealed John Campea inherits Dungeons & Dragons company. That's actually owned by Hasbro right now. Hasbro owns Dungeons & Dragons. I bet you didn't know that. Thus, the true Dungeon Master and decides to direct a Dungeons & Dragons film reboot to make up for the crap first one. More like Earth D20. I get a D20. I like it there. It is still one of the more unfortunate things in cinematic history that a Dungeons & Dragons movie got made and that it was so bad. Because Dungeons & Dragons, it is literally a blank page. For a filmmaker, it's not like a video, it's not like Last of Us, where if you're going to make a Last of Us movie or TV show, there's already a certain plot and story you have to follow. Dungeons & Dragons, you can do anything you want. It's an open world within the world of Dungeons. You can do anything you want in there. And it's really unfortunate that they put out a movie and it was so bad. And it was so bad. I gotta believe I could do a better job. Maybe not, but I like to think maybe I could. All right, Matt Ford 53 writes, did Google Stadia, speaking about unfortunate things, did Google Stadia come out? I haven't heard anything about it at all. I thought it would be big. Dude, I thought it would be huge. Like when I saw the first presentation for Google Stadia, I thought this is going to change everything. This is going to change everything. And they made all these claims about the quality of it and the lack of latency. And then it kind of came out with a thud. And it kind of disappeared. And then I believe NVIDIA has their own service that is even better than it. And I think others have their services as well that kind of do a similar thing, but only much better. Yeah, Stadia kind of appeared in a hurricane with its announcement and all these promises. And I got very excited about it. And then it kind of came out with a dud with a lot of negative reviews. And it's really unfortunate. Who knows? Maybe they can up their game a bit in the years ahead, or maybe they'll just abandon it because other people are doing it better than they are now. All right, Daniel Hinosha writes, do you think one should apologize, even if they don't mean it, or truly believe they didn't do anything wrong, even if it's just to keep the peace? There's no one answer to that. And not really a movie question, but still, there's not really an answer to that. I mean, every single situation is unique. In some circumstances, absolutely. In other circumstances, absolutely not. But there's no one unfortunate pad answer that can just answer that in general. It really is. In some situations, absolutely. Just, shut up, swallow your pride and say sorry. In other situations, no, you can't say sorry because it's too important of an issue that could lead to more problems if you do. So it really all depends. All right, next up here, Johnny Weiner writes, I just saw Old Boy, the 2013. I'm all for North American remakes of classic Asian films. This one was terrible. I just saw Old Boy 2013, and now I am traumatized by that ending twist. I just can't look at Thanos and Wanda Scarlet Witch scene in Endgame the same way again without thinking about that movie. Also, Mantis and Nick Fury were in it as well. Yeah, not a good adaptation at all. But even just the quality of the movie aside, it's a very disturbing twist at the end. And you're right. If you've seen that movie, it is a little difficult to watch that scene in Endgame where Wanda and Thanos are conversing with each other. You will. Because it puts it all in a different context. It puts it all into, very unfortunate way. But again, it would be great if the movie was solid like the original was. But yeah, just not a good remake, man. Just not a good remake. The Wakandan Forever writes, what is your review of Meteor Man 1993? It's funny, we've talked about Meteor Man a couple of times here. Let me bring it up here. It's just so that has come up and we've talked about it here. Robert Townsend's movie, right? So hold on a second while it loads up here. Oh, and Robert also wrote it. I forgot about that. That's right. Not a big fan. Not a big fan, to be honest. Just like I said before, still not a big fan. Mr47 writes, 3 COVID-19 film suggestions. 1, Trust, directed by David Schwimmer, about an adult predator/child relationship. Just, I was actually the first guy to interview David Schwimmer because it was a part of an AMC program called AMCI. It was AMCI was the name, AMC Independent. And David Schwimmer came down to our theater, sit down. I got to he was really great to talk to. And that is a solid little film, actually. Just powerful. Number 2, Searching, starring John Cho and Deborah Messing, actually. A movie I didn't think looked very good, and I was floored by how good it was. Finding Nemo, but online. Prisoners. Oh, yeah, Prisoners? That's the Denis Villeneuve film, the guy who's directing Dune, coming up. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal, Hugh Jackman. Absolutely stunningly powerful movie. All right. I'm guessing this is a continuation. Okay, directed by Denis Villeneuve, powerhouse performances by Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman. Bonus, Knives Out, all thrillers, perfect for staying inside. And those are some good movie recommendations. I am in particular a big fan of Knives Out. I loved that movie. I actually thought it should have been nominated. Did it get nominated for Best Picture? I know it was nominated for Best Screenplay. But anyway, I thought that movie was fantastic. All right, good recommendations there, man. All right, Captain J10 writes, according to Adam, the movie app, Black Widow comes out on November 6th. You think that's a good date to release it? Which movie are you upset you can't see this year? I think it's a perfectly good date. I mean, it was supposed to come out today. Today being Friday, May the 1st. Today was the day it was supposed to come out. Clearly, that's not happening. But, yeah, November's a perfectly good date for it. I think it can succeed. The only unfortunate thing was, of course, that made them bump Eternals. And it is what it is. What movie am I upset that I can't see this year? Well, a lot of the movies that got bumped just got bumped to later this year. I can only, like, for instance, Bond. That's still coming out this year. The only ones I can really think of are, like, Eternals, Fast 9. What else got bumped into 2021 and not just later this year? But not really. Really, there hasn't been anything that got bumped that I'm upset that got bumped to 2021. You know what I mean? I mean, they're still coming. I know we're getting the movies. There weren't as many movies in 2020 that I was as excited about as I was in 2019. Like 2019 was just stacked with highly anticipated movies. There's certainly ones I was looking forward to this year, but none that I'm like upset or mad that we don't get to see this year. Because I said a lot of them are still coming out this year too. All right. Spirit Jones writes, hey, John, Brie Larson is taking song requests and playing her guitar. That's cool of her to do. Will you take the challenge? I know you play guitar, but will you take song requests? No. No. Listen, the only time I will grab my guitar and play it, and the only times, I think I've done it about 3 or 4 times. And the only times I have done it is 1, when I lost a bet. 2, when I had one of our viewers who was shipping off for the military and asked that I sing a particular song for him. So I wanted to thank them for their service. And so I did that. 1 was for my mom's birthday. And 1 was as a joke, whatever. But other than that, no, I don't pull out the guitar. I don't pull out the guitar to play on screen all that often. So no, I am no Brie Larson, my friend. I am no Brie Larson. All right. Stubble McShave writes, the hair on Daryl Hannah in Splash is hypocritical. Absolutely not. You're completely wrong. Her bare butt is more or less what you see on a beach. Doesn't matter. It's not what you see on television. If they change it for fear of what an 8-year-old will see, why is it okay to show an 8-year-old a heroic character decapitating an enemy that's been beaten in Endgame? Again, like, too many people are trying to make up new standards of what should and shouldn't be seen. The bottom and the easiest line, the clearest and most simple way for Disney to maintain and to justify to their subscribers that they are striving to be family friendly is basically this. If you can't show it on regular television, we won't show it on our network. That's basically it. To not show nudity is not hypocritical. I know a lot of people like to pretend that it is, but it's not. You know, and by the way, I do not understand. To this day, I have no idea. I think people are just getting upset at this just so they can say that they're upset. Because Ann and I just watched Splash again the other night, and I didn't realize we were watching it on Disney Plus. I thought she bought it on Google Play, but at any rate, and then the scene came where they just CGI'd the hair long. It doesn't change the fundamental essence of the movie at all. At all. It's like if we don't cover her ass, we don't feel comfortable putting on Disney Plus. If all we have to do is CGI her hair to be a little bit longer, oh well, okay, great. No harm, no foul. I honestly have no idea why anybody's upset about it. I really don't. I mean, I agree, Daryl Hannah's ass should be on display for the world to see. Of that, I completely agree. She has one of the most legendary asses in the history of asses. I will give you that. However, what's the problem? Seriously, what's the problem? How did that change the movie? It didn't. It didn't change the movie in the least. It's perfectly fine. And look, and like I said, television networks have been doing this forever. No one ever complained. We joke about it. You know, Samuel L. Jackson, I want these mother flipping snakes off this mother flipping plane. I mean, we joke about it because they actually put that on TV. But television, it's the exact same thing. Television's been doing it forever. Nobody whined and complained about it. I just don't see now. If they get into a thing where they start fundamentally changing the movie itself and the story, okay, that becomes a problem. We can deal with that at the time. But Disney deciding, you know what? If we show her bare ass, we're not comfortable putting on Disney Plus. It'll have to go on Hulu. We can fix that without changing anything fundamental about the movie and put it on Disney Plus for our Disney Plus subscribers. Just by CGing out some hair, and nobody has a problem with it. I still to this day, like, if you have a problem with it, God bless. I'm just saying I just can't see that point of view. I respect it. I respect that you have that point of view. I don't have to understand your point of view to respect it, and I respect that you have it. I'm just saying it's so far beyond me that I just can't grasp anybody having a problem with it. But unless you engage in a slippery slope argument, but that's a fallacy. So, I mean, I don't know. I certainly don't think it's hypocritical at all. I don't think it's hypocritical. The only way it's hypocritical is if, and I think people are misusing the term hypocritical. If Disney came out 6 months ago and attacked Netflix for CGing extra hair to cover an actress's ass on their platform, and then Disney did it, that's the definition of hypocritical. Doing what you preach against, that's the definition of hypocritical. So this is not the application of the word hypocritical at all. They made a choice for their service. I think it's perfectly fine. It's time to move on. All right. Patrick Conway writes, just saw this old movie called Choke starring Sam Rockwell. It's weird, but in a good way. Was shocked to see it's directed by director Clark Gregg. Yes, it is. Clark Gregg, who plays, of course, Coulson in the MCU. But he also wrote that movie, by the way. He wrote and directed it. And you're right. It is a solid little movie. It's kind of a scam artist movie, but it goes well beyond that at the same time. But yeah, man, Clark Gregg didn't just direct it. He wrote and directed it, which I think is damn impressive. All right. Priera writes, I can't imagine for a second that the SonyVerse is part of the MCU. How could Feige accept this? Nicholas Priera writes, either he co-produces the Sony spinoffs or the Sonyverse is a parallel universe. I'd be sad to know that Eddie the Lobster Eater lives in the same world as Cap. The MCU had nothing to do with Liar Liar last time I checked. Well, I mean, they're not saying every movie in the MCU or every movie that Sony's ever produced is a part of this. And again, I don't know that they're going to say that the MCU and the movies that Sony are making are actually in the same universe. They've been hinting at it with Michael Keaton being in the Morbius trailer and all that kind of stuff. They've certainly dropped hints about it, but I'm not ready to say that that's definitive. That's exactly what's happening. I think there could be a big misdirect going on, but it could also happen. I also struggle with, because Kevin Feige, in all the best ways, is an absolute control freak when it comes to the MCU. And part of the reason the MCU has been so successful is because Kevin Feige has kept a very tight grip on what happens in his cinematic universe and what does not happen. And if all of a sudden now you've got Sony making movies that are part of the MCU that Kevin Feige has no control over, and Sony can just go anytime they want, yeah, we're going to say that Chicago blows up in our Spider-Man movie. Well, if they're connected, now the MCU has to exist with a Chicago that's been destroyed. What if Kevin Feige doesn't want Chicago destroyed in his MCU? I mean, that is the big problem. So it's fascinating understanding that about Kevin Feige and his overall creative genius. And yet we see these things in the Morbius trailer. Spider-Man mural, Michael Keaton. Again, nothing definitive, but it does seem to be, it's going to be really interesting, Nicholas, to see how it is they actually shake this all out. I'm going to be very curious to see what they're, because remember, they had to come up with a last minute deal because they were going to end their deal. They weren't going to, Spider-Man was going right back to Sony. He wasn't going to be in the MCU anymore, all that kind of stuff. And then at the last second, hey guys, we reached a new agreement. It's going to be interesting to see what the details of that agreement are. It's going to be interesting once, and time will tell. We will find out soon enough. All right, the Mad Titan writes, thanks to my dad, I saw the heart scene from Temple of Doom, Malika, Kalima, that's it, Kalima, Saving Private Ryan, The Thing, all before I was 9 years old. I also work in an ER. Good on you, man. I was raised to handle gore. I still cringe at Bone Tomahawk. Dude, that Bone Tomahawk is a movie that's come up a few times last little while, and all you have to say is Bone Tomahawk, and I'm forgetting the name. Oh, I'm embarrassed that I'm forgetting the name of the director. Craig Zahler directed it, right? Craig Zahler directed it. This movie has a scene, and I don't like to give anything away, but Patrick Wilson, Kurt Russell, Matthew Fox, but this movie has a scene in it that maybe this isn't a good thing, but when you walk away from Bone Tomahawk, it's all you're going to be able to think about. And, you know, you want to think about the whole movie, right? But I'm telling you, listen to Mad Titan here. When you watch this movie, just be warned. It is all you're going to be able to think about when you think of Bone Tomahawk. It is this one of the craziest things, and I don't want to say disturbing, but shaking. I don't know. I don't know how to define it, but it's that scene, Mad Titan. It's just that scene. And by the way, thank you for working in an ER, man, especially in days like today. We need people like you in our world, man. So thank you for doing that. All right. Let's see here. Patrick Conway writes, you think we could see some I'm going to assume you mean World War II flashbacks in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Oh, I see what you're saying. I think you wrote this question in once before, and I think you mistyped it, because before you said, do I think we could see some World War II flashbacks in the Winter Soldier? And I'm like, hasn't that movie already come out? Anyway, now I see what you're saying. Do you think we could see some World War II flashbacks in Falcon and Winter Soldier? We could even have Neil McDonough back, who, by the way, his quick little cameo in Sonic the Hedgehog, Neil McDonough's cameo in Sonic the Hedgehog was pretty funny. His interaction with Jim Carrey was great. Back, see some battles before Cap joined. Is it possible? Yeah, I don't think they're going there, though. I don't think they're going there. If this was a Winter Soldier show, I would think there's a higher possibility of that. And it's still a possibility, but it being a Falcon and Winter Soldier show, I think it lessens the chances. So I'll set the over-under on us getting those war flashbacks with Neil McDonough and the rest of the commandos. I'm going to say put the over-under at 12%. Now, if it was just Winter Soldier show, I would say like 35, 40% even. But Falcon Winter Soldier, I'm going to say 12%. All right. Jedi Lori writes, my friends, you bow to no one. One of the final lines of Lord of the Rings, the whole franchise. Watch this trilogy again this week. Tears. I shake. I still shake. You have these 4 hobbits amongst elves and men and dwarves and these immortals and whatever. And the king comes to them, and these little hobbits, they start to bow to the king, and the king of men says, my friends, you bow to no one. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps right now. He says, my friends, you bow to no one. And the king of Gondor kneels in front of these hobbits. And then the immortal elves kneel before the hobbits. And the dwarves, the mighty dwarves, kneel before the hobbits. And it's just, it's amazing. And then the camera shot that Peter Jackson chose of then the look on the hobbits' faces as all this is going on. It just, oh, God, Jedi lore. It's so good. It's so good. Anyway, Julius Goodwin writes, finally realized why Tony gave Peter the EDITH system in Far From Home. In Infinity War, he'd had to watch Peter, a child superhero, die in his arms. Being a father himself, he simply wanted to protect a child from danger. I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's why it happened. I don't think that's what happened. I will say it again. Something that I said when I initially reviewed Spider-Man Far From Home, which I like. I like Spider-Man Far From Home. I think it's a fun movie. I enjoyed it. But the idea that Tony Stark would leave probably the most dangerous technology in the world to a high school student was utterly ridiculous, right? Instead of leaving it with Pepper or with Hap or with Rhodey or with all the other people he knows and trusts, to leave it to a high school child was one of the stupidest things ever. And I'm glad that the director of Spider-Man Far From Home kind of leaned into that a bit, because the very first thing, as soon as Peter takes it out, he nearly kills other high school students with it. He invades everybody's privacy. He almost gets some high school students killed doing it. And then he naively just goes, okay, here you go. And he gives it away to the villain of the film. I mean, because it's a high school student. He's a child. It was one of the dumber things in there. And I don't think he leaves that to him. Look, everything he was supposed to be Spider-Man. He's a super-powered being. And he already made him the ridiculous Iron Man Jr. suit. So yeah, I just thought that was a poor choice. Not to mention, here's something that hasn't been brought up enough. Here's something that has not been brought up enough. When did he leave it to Peter? Now, maybe, granted, I might be forgetting something here. I might be forgetting something here from the movie. And if I am, I'm sure 1,000 of you will correct me in the comment section, and I'm open to it. Correct me if I'm wrong here. But when exactly did he leave that to Peter? Because Peter was gone. Peter was dead. And Tony Stark was alive for about 10 minutes after Peter came back. Peter came back on the field of battle in the portal scene, a battle that Tony Stark died in. When did he leave EDITH to Peter? And again, there might be a big thing I'm just forgetting about. Like, John, don't you remember in this movie, there was this scene where they specifically addressed that? That might be the case. I'm just spitballing off the top of my head. I don't remember it right now off the top of my head, but I'm like, wait, when did Tony do that? Like, after he snapped his fingers and he's laying on the ground, oh, I'm dying. Oh, quick, I better leave this thing in my will real quick. Oh, okay, now I'm dead. Like, is that what happened? I'm not sure. But anyway, him leaving that to a child was one of the most idiotic things done in movies. And when exactly did he do that? I'm not really clear, and I'm not really sure. And why didn't he leave it to his lifelong, trustworthy friend, Rhodey? Why didn't he leave it to the guy who has been by his side for decades and decades and Hap? Why did he not leave it to the most intelligent and capable woman he knows and trusts with his life and is his life partner in Pepper? No idea, but he left it to a child who immediately almost killed other children with it, and then immediately gave it away to a dangerous villain. Stupid. Just stupid. But anyway, I still like the movie very much. I still like it very much, but yeah. So, yeah, Julius, it's a romantic vision you have of that. I just don't see it. You know, I just don't see it. But anyway, that's just me, man. That's just me. All right, thanks for writing that in, man. I always like talking about that movie, though. Thanks for writing that in, Julius. All right, McHenry writes, hey, John and crew, greetings from Ireland. I love so much about Ireland. I've always wanted to visit. Always wanted to visit. Anyway, did you watch the new show on Hulu, Normal People? I have not. Directed by Lenny Abramson, who did Room with Brie Larson. It's fantastic and much watch. You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because the streaming service I actually use more than any other streaming service is not Amazon Prime, even though I have it. It's not Netflix, even though I have it. It's actually Hulu. I go to Hulu every day. And it's funny you mentioned this one because I've been noticing like every day this week when I open up Hulu, that's the first show that they pop up in the recommendations. They're really, really pushing this show. And you're the first person to write in to say that you've watched and that you've enjoyed. So I might need to check that out. So thanks for putting that on my radar, McHenry. And thank you for the recommendation, because now I'm like, now somebody else has mentioned, because it just keeps popping up on my Hulu screen. I'm like, okay, what is this? You like it? I may have to check it out. Thank you for that recommendation, dude. All right. The Wakandan Forever writes, hey, John, quick thumbs up for chat and viewers. Thanks. Oh, thank you, Wakandan Forever. We do have a great group of viewers, and they make it a fun place to be. And so thank you for that acknowledgement, Wakandan. I appreciate that, dude. All right. Diamond Dog's Puppy writes, hey, John, today's underrated film, 1993's Judgment Night with Dennis Leary. I like Judgment Night. It's a thriller about friends making a wrong turn into a dangerous neighborhood. Strange cast for the thriller. Emilio Estevez, Cuba Gooding Jr., Dorf Piven, and Dennis Leary as the awesome villain. Thoughts? Yeah, Dennis Leary was great in that as the antagonist. And it's right. If you didn't know that this was a real movie and you look at the cast, you think, oh, that's a made up movie. No, it's a real movie actually with that cast. And I always liked it. And it was the first thing for me, like, we all remember certain movie stars and celebrities by like, oh, I first knew them from this. Even though Dennis Leary was around before that, that's the thing to me that I go back to. Like, when I first think of Dennis Leary, I think of Judgment Night. Don't know why, but I just do. So I really like that one, Diamond Dogs. That's a good recommendation. All right, next one up. Chris Miner writes, rewatched Iron Man 2 since the first time I saw it in theaters. Definitely one of the weakest MCU films, but it isn't a dumpster fire like others say. You know, I agree. To me, it's probably the worst MCU movie. It's probably the worst one. That said, the worst MCU movie is still not bad. I mean, it's not good, but it's still not bad. And there's some good scenes in it, and there's some good character development in it. There's some good mythology building in it. I mean, it was our first look at Black Widow was in that, so that's good. Rhodey gets the War Machine armor. That's good. There's some good things in there, but yeah, I agree. I think it is probably, if not one of the least, then probably the least good of the MCU films. But I concur. I don't think it's a complete dumpster fire of a movie either, Chris. I just don't. All right. Artur writes, hey, John, I think the U.S. government can finally use a movie, that movie being Cats, as torture to extract vital information from someone regarding national security. Also, which movie do you think is better, Catwoman or Elektra? Oh, that's easy. Elektra is better. Elektra is a bad film. Elektra's a bad movie. But it's going back to what Chris was talking about earlier. It's not a dumpster fire. It's just bad. It's just a bad movie. That's all. Catwoman, and you remember who you're talking to here. Catwoman, to me, is amongst the unholy trinity of the three worst wide-release Hollywood studio films in history. And those films are, in no particular order, Highlander 2: The Quickening, Battlefield Earth, and Halle Berry's Catwoman. They stand as the unholy trinity, in my opinion, of the all-time worst big wide-release Hollywood films in history. Elektra's bad, but it ain't Catwoman bad, so that one's pretty easy for me, Artur. All right, next up, Rage Quit, I like that name, writes, Daily listens during work. You, Steven Crowder, Drake, and Ben Shapiro. So I'm a Mexican-American that listens to Canadians and a Jewish guy. LOL. In my opinion, I listen to you guys that are super smart in their fields. Oh, dude, thank you. That's very kind words. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's always nice when somebody wants to write in just to say something nice. So, dude, I appreciate that, man, very, very much, and I'm glad you're part of our community, dude. As a Mexican-American that listens to Canadians and Jewish guys, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. All right. Brandon Holy writes, hey, John, greetings from Alabama. Roll Tide. Been watching since the AMC days. My question is, since you and Ann are moving to Seattle, which is probably being delayed now, I'll talk about that in a second. I was curious if you and Jeremy Johns would possibly be able to collaborate on the show since he also lives in Seattle. Thanks. Well, first off, I don't really do collaborations. And I mean, considering that Rob only lives about a 15-minute drive from me, and I still don't have him in studio. It doesn't really matter where somebody lives in the world. I could have them come in on Skype anytime, so it doesn't really matter geography-wise what I do or where I go. But I don't really do collabs. That's the thing. I just kind of focus on my show. I have the same people on my show. I mean, once in a while for fun, I'll get Christian on to do a quick little 1-minute blurb. And who knows? I mean, I could do that, Jeremy. I could do that with anybody. That may or may not happen, but me moving to Seattle doesn't really change that. Now, as far as me moving to Seattle goes, we were thinking that Anne has started her job with Amazon. But she started her job from here in LA because the offices are closed. So everybody's working from home. So we figured in a month or two, we'll have to go out to Seattle, find a place because they'll open their offices back up. Well, apparently, Anne was just telling me this. Amazon just extended their work from home thing until October. So what are we in now? May now? June, July, August, September. So she and I are both going to be here for at least another 5 months. So that move, which I've been mentally preparing myself for, is now a lot further off than I thought it was going to be. So we're not moving to Seattle anytime soon, but eventually we'll be getting out there and finding an apartment to live in. All right, LaBelle writes, I recently rewatched Beverly Hills Ninja, and oh boy, this is probably one of the most cringy, unfunniest movies I've ever seen. I remember quite liking it as a kid. A big shame because Chris Farley, who is an all-time great. Listen, I mean, you know how sometimes we talk about here on the show that the best directors, all the best filmmakers, everybody has a bad day at the office, right? Spielberg's had a bad day at the office. The Russo brothers have had a bad day at the office. All of the greats have had a bad day at the office. Chris Farley, to me, Beverly Hills Ninja was his bad day at the office. It's unwatchable. It's simply unwatchable. I mean, and I remember, I'm kind of like you, back when I was younger, and Chris Farley was like one of the funniest things ever. You liked it because it was Chris Farley, but you watch it now, it's like, oh my God, this is really, truly terrible. Whereas his other stuff, like Tommy Boy and whatever, can still totally hold up. But like, yeah, Beverly Hills Ninja, I will concur with you, is probably Chris Farley's bad day at the office, which is too bad. All right, but everybody has one. Everybody has one. All right, Ash M writes, hey, John, I just read that Amazon, speaking of which, I just read that Amazon extended work from home until October. Does this include Anne? As far as we know, yes, it does. As far as we know, it absolutely does include Anne, so we're going to still be in LA for quite a while longer, as it turns out. Thanks for writing that in, Ash. All right, Christy Cobb writes, I keep hearing day and date, which I just mentioned earlier. I think from the context, I know what that means, but what does it really mean? Basically, it means this. When you hear somebody in the movie industry talking about movies and talking about day and date, that basically means releasing a movie on the same day in movie theaters, VOD, streaming, whatever. So putting in theaters and on home video in whatever form. That's what day and date means. So if you hear somebody say, yeah, they're looking at releasing this movie day and date, well, that means they're wanting to release a movie in theaters and on VOD at the same time. Now, where that has normally been the case is when like these smaller films will have like playing like 15 theaters, 15 theaters across America and go on VOD at the same time, whether that's to be, festival qualifiers, awards qualifier, whatever. But that basically is what day and date means, putting it out in theaters and on home video in whatever form on the same day. All right, hopefully that was a little helpful, Christy. All right, next up. Iconic Reactions writes, 5 more seasons of Lucifer or star as a main character for 1 more final season. What do you pick? Oh, that's easy. I also just got accepted to a top acting school in Toronto. Congratulations, man. That's awesome. Chasing your dreams. Good for you, man. That's great. Dream roles to play Miles Morales. All right. If I had to choose right now, because everybody knows I love Lucifer. It's one of my favorite shows on television. Love this show. If I had to choose, I either get 5 more seasons of Lucifer or I get to be one of the lead stars, like one of the lead characters in Lucifer for 1 final year. Oh, dude, I'd be lying if I didn't say I'd take the 1 year with me in it. Get to be in one of your favorite shows? I'd be totally selfish. I mean, I'm a terrible actor too. I'm awful. I'd ruin the show. But I'd totally take the selfish route on that one. I'd totally be in it for a year. Anybody who says they wouldn't is totally lying. I would totally take that. Absolutely, I would. But you can all rest assured and be thankful that that will never, ever happen. I will never be given that opportunity. All right, thanks for sending that in, Iconic Reactions. All right, NKS432 writes, I'm not superstitious, but is Tony versus Khabib cursed? Basically, they've tried 5 times to make this fight now. And something always comes up. It even took a global pandemic to screw one up. But listen, by the way, there could be another big problem here by the name of Gaethje. Because now Tony Ferguson is fighting Gaethje. And guess what? If Gaethje beats Ferguson, and Gaethje's the underdog, but I'm telling you what, I'm picking him. I think he's going to win that fight. I think Gaethje's going to win that fight. And when he does, you can kiss any Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov goodbye. Because then it's Gaethje that gets a shot at the crown. And now the sexiness of that fight, of Ferguson versus Khabib, is now gone. So I think it has been cursed, and I think it will continue to be cursed, as a matter of fact. All right, Marcus Orlowitz writes, "Hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much. Been a fan since AMC. I was wondering, can you explain PR when it comes to movies and TV shows? PR is simply press relations or public relations. Some people call it press relations, but because ultimately that's what it really is press relations. A PR person is their responsibility to kind of help cultivate and shape the image of a movie or show and those involved with it to the public, normally through the conduit of the press. So I have a PR person who's a friend of mine. It's like, it's my job to be friends with the press. I mean, that's their job. I mean, it's the PR people who put on the set visits, it's the PR people who really help coordinate a lot of the press and things like that. I mean, it's a huge topic, but basically that's what it is. That's basically what it is. All right, next up, Joe Mama writes, "Hey, John, big fan. Thank you so much, Joe. Love your show. I was wondering if you noticed on last night's Parks and Recreation special that Larry, Jerry, Gary, Terry, I think was the only one that had negative grizzle points where everyone else was in the thousands and hundreds of thousands." I'm not quite sure what you mean. Do you mean grizzle by the tech company, the fictitious tech company in Parks and Rec? Because they weren't using Zoom or Google Hangout. They were using, was it G that they were using? Was it Grizzle? I didn't notice. But you've just given me an excuse now, Joe, that I need to go back and watch. But it was so great to see Gary. So long known as Jerry. Sometimes known as Terry. He is like one of my favorite straight man characters in sitcoms. I love Jerry Gergich. I love that character, man. And I thought he was great on the show last night. I really do. God, I love seeing Parks and Rec again. Oh, I love that show so much. I forgot how much you know what's funny? When Ann and I sat down to watch it last night and the opening credits start, ba-da-ba-bum, ba-da-ba-bum, I felt like it was just yesterday that we watched another episode. Well, it really was, because we did watch a rerun. We watch reruns all the time of it. But I mean, it really just feel like it was just yesterday. Or last month that we saw the latest episode of Parks and Rec. It felt like it never left. And I want them to do another one. Do another one, guys. Come on, please do another one. That was perfection. That little reunion special last night was absolute perfection. I loved it. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Joe. All right, Patrick Manis writes, taking into consideration the AMC Universal battle. Remember, it's not AMC and Universal. It's all the movie theaters and Universal. That's really the battle. It's NATO and Universal. Anyway, financially, could this affect how close a margin the theaters operate on, or even how inflated movie budgets are? Your thoughts? I don't think it'll have any impact on how inflated movie budgets are, which is unfortunate, because that would be one of the good consequences of this if that works in, because studios spend way too much on money. I don't think it'll affect the margins of movie theaters very much, to be honest with you, because not every movie that comes out is going to make the movie theaters money. It's just that simple. So anytime you have a significant studio, and Universal is like, they've got 14 or 15, 16% market share. They're not a Disney, they're not a Warner Brothers, but still, whenever you have an already thin margin, if you take that out of the equation, that'll hurt. But listen, Universal isn't going to be so stupid that they're going to take any of their big films and try to pull this VOD nonsense. They're not going to do it with Fast 9. They're not going to do it with any of their big properties. And those are the ones that are most profitable for the theaters too. So I really don't think we're going to see that much of an impact. It's a game of mutually assured self-destruction that Universal and the movie theaters are playing with each other right now. And cooler heads will prevail. Cooler heads damn well better prevail, or they're both in trouble. All right, thanks for that, man. All right, Jesse writes, the Parks and Rec special was amazing. Even the clip they did before it almost brought a tear to my eye. Seeing the behind-the-scenes stuff, yeah, they did that little highlights of the Paley Fest stuff beforehand, and it was showing like, so-and-so is now a wrap on Parks and Rec. Aziz Ansari is now a wrap on Parks and Rec. Rob Lowe is now a wrap on Parks. I mean, it was so beautiful and touching. Honestly, one of the greatest shows ever. It was so, Jesse, I can sit here all day. I can sit here all day, Jesse. Just you and me talking about that Parks and Rec special. And the way they opened it with Paul Rudd as Bobby Newport, it was the perfect way to open it. I've been here at my Swiss fox hunting farm. What's going on in the world? What? I mean, it was perfect. It was a perfect opening, perfect ending. Andy locking himself in the shed. It was so good. I loved it. Anyway, Jesse also writes, what's worse, Spunk or Peacock? Peacock is dumb. Peacock is a dumb name for their streaming service. Spunk is by far worse. Spunk is by far worse. All right, Goodfella writes, just finished a rewatch of Spartacus, the TV series. That's the one that Aaron Cummings is in. And got to introduce my roommate to it for the first time. Thanks, Lockdown. As a fellow ardent advocate of this show, which villain do you appreciate the most? Badiatus, Lucretia, Caesar, Crassus, Asher, or Illitha? All the time. Batiatus. He is just an awesome character. And one of the things I loved about him is that sometimes he wanted to be a good man. Like, always ambitious, but there were times that he wanted to be a good man. And there were times he would do the right thing. Ultimately, ambition and everything and it just destroyed him. But his dialogue, too, in the show, I still never remember. I cracked one of the funniest lines ever in Spartacus is when he's in this negotiation for somebody, and somebody suggests to him some real, imbalanced terms. And he says, kindly remove cock from ass. And I just remember losing it. I forget the actor's name, but he was also in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a year or two. I forget the actor's name, but he was so good in that role. It made it one of my favorite characters on TV for a long time. So I'm going to go with him. Good on you, though, for getting your roommate introduced to it. All right. John David McCullen writes, Spunk, Return of the Filthy. I'm just like, come on. How did they not know that this was going to become a laughingstock? They had to know. Come on. They had to know, John. They had to. All right. Herman Muller writes, if Universal remains at loggerheads with NATO, can Disney/Marvel demand or sue to get distribution rights to Hulk back? No. Even with limited screens to play on, a Hulk movie would have less or even no box office. Here's the problem. The only way they could do that, number one, Marvel would have to show that they were planning on making a Hulk movie, which they never were. Number two, if Disney did make a Hulk movie with Marvel and Universal got to be the distributor, Universal wouldn't do the day and date thing. They wouldn't do it. They know not to do that. They would just say, nope, this is theatrical exclusive. That's exactly what they would do. So it wouldn't be a problem anyway. So there's two big things that would ever prevent that from happening. Number one, Marvel would have to prove they were planning on making one. And then number two, Universal would have to say, we wouldn't allow it. We would want to insist on a day and date release of Incredible Hulk, neither of which are going to happen. So I don't think there's anything to worry about on that part goes. So no, Disney would and Marvel would have no basis for any kind of a lawsuit against Universal to get the Hulk rights back. All right. A man nicknamed Pooh Bear writes, guilty pleasure alert. Just saw that Netflix is streaming Battle Los Angeles. God, I wanted to like that movie so much. Anyway, being a grandson and son of Marines, that's awesome. It is always fun to watch any movie featuring them in the greatest light. So if you are a military brat like myself, it's a great watch. I cannot relate with you on that level. I wanted to like the movie. Aaron Eckhart was the star of that movie. And I remember I went and did the press day for it. I went and sat down and interviewed him and the rest of the cast for it. And I love the trailers for it. I wish I could concur with you, Pooh Bear. I wish I could concur. But no, I didn't think Battle Los Angeles was very good. I mean, the trailers were awesome. It had so much potential. It had actors that I really loved, including Michelle Monaghan, Moynihan, however you pronounce her last name. I love her. Eckhart's in there. What's not to love? And I just, yeah. For me, the movie wasn't very good, Pooh Bear, but I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. That's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right. Goodfella writes, ever watch Banshee? I never have. Fantastic, brutal street fights, interesting characters and storyline. Just finished that rewatch with my roommate too, like Spartacus, and Banshee is free on Amazon Prime. 4 seasons, and first time I saw Ozark's Tom Pelfrey. I don't watch Ozark either, and he's great in that. So no, I can say I've heard of Banshee though. I've heard a few people say good things. You know, let me bring it up on IMDb right now. Hold on a second. Let me bring that up. Banshee. All right. Now, what's it on? Amazon Prime? The only Banshee I'm finding here came out a number of years ago. An ex-con assumes the identity of a murdered sheriff in the small town of Banshee, Pennsylvania, where he has some unfinished business. Really? Okay. That actually sounds kind of interesting. Starring Anthony Starr, Ulrich Thompson, Frankie Faison. All right. Actually, that sounds kind of interesting. It's got a little bit of a Fargo kind of feel to it a little bit. I'm not even really familiar with this show at all. I mean, I've heard the name mentioned a few times. Didn't know what it was about. I might have to, I'm going to leave this page open because I might want to watch the trailer for this a little bit later. Thank you, good fella, for putting that on my radar, man. All right, next up here. A man nicknamed Pooh Bear writes, I know you're not a fan of Lady Tano in the Clone Wars. No, I'm not. But my goodness, the last 3 episodes have been epic. Sam Witwer, who is great, and Ashley Eckstein, who is also great. Voice acting has given me chills. Some damn good Star Wars. Listen, I've heard from people who've been watching it. I've heard 2 different things. 1, the first 8 episodes of the season have been terrible. 2, the last 3 episodes have been fantastic. That's what I'm hearing from her. I ditched the show. Like, I watched all of the original Clone Wars series. I watched episode 1 of this season. It's just not for me, so I don't watch it, and I don't plan on watching it because I don't like it. It's not for me. But I love hearing that those of you who do watch it are enjoying it, so that's great to hear. All right. Peter Pacheco writes, hey crew, if this pandemic hit between Infinity War and Endgame, what would it have done to Endgame's box office value? A lot. But here's what would have happened. Disney would have delayed the release. They would have delayed the release and then put it out in theaters when they needed to. And then depending on how quickly the movie theaters can recover, it may have done just as well. Probably not as well, but still really damn good. It still would have done damn good. I still think it makes $2 billion. I still think it joins the $2 billion club. Probably doesn't catch Avatar for the all-time record. It probably does not catch Avatar for the all-time record, but it would still do really, really good business. And so, I mean, the biggest part would be that fans would have had to wait it even longer. And that would have been a tough one for fans. That one would, especially after Infinity War, waiting another year for Endgame would have been a tough pill to swallow for MCU fans. That's for sure, Peter. All right, Goodfella writes, I too, staying on the topic of Clone Wars, I too do not like the Ahsoka character and have always had a lukewarm relationship with Clone Wars series. Regardless, episodes 9 forward of this season are actually phenomenal. Being of similar mindset, thought maybe this might sway you to try it. Nah. No, I did 6 seasons plus 1 episode, or was it 7 seasons? Anyway, however many seasons it was, and I know it's not for me, so I don't need to check it out. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's the important thing. I'm glad you're having a good time with it, but it's not for me. All right, iconic reactions. I've got shows like Banshee to watch. I don't have time to watch shows that I know I don't like when I got shows like Banshee that I've never seen that I got to give a shot to still. All right, iconic reactions writes, call me crazy, but I can see Zac Efron. This is the second person bringing up Zac Efron in the role. I can see Zac Efron playing Hercules. He has a singing background and the appearance. Plus, this could put him back in the spotlight. Listen, I think he's phenomenally talented. And I loved him in Greatest Showman. He can clearly sing. And if you saw the movie Baywatch, which was terrible, but if you saw Baywatch with him and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the dude is bodybuilder type ripped. I just think he needs to be a bigger guy to be Hercules. I don't know. I mean, maybe they don't. Maybe you just put him in there because he's a good actor and he makes it work. He certainly could. I mean, he's got like Greek-like good looks. He's got the physique for it. He can certainly sing if they go the musical route in the movie, which I don't think they will. But if they do, he's got that background. So there's a lot of upside for him doing it. All right. McKeel writes, my first two thoughts as soon as Hercules was announced were, I'm surprised they're letting the Russos do this. And here comes Hemsworth. Yeah, because on the John Campea Show earlier today, I said, listen, here's a prediction. I'm going to set an over-under. 35% over or under that they get Chris Hemsworth to play Hercules. You need somebody big with the physique and the acting chops to carry a movie. You can't just go out and get some big person. You need somebody with the acting chops to carry the movie. The Russo brothers have worked with Chris Hemsworth a couple of times. I'm just telling you, I'm putting a full 35% that we hear that Chris Hemsworth is going to be Hercules. I can't guarantee that, of course, and there are other possibilities. But I think that is by far the biggest possibility. All right, John Early writes, do you guys realize that Daniel Craig is the first James Bond to do 5 films in a row since the late Roger Moore? Dalton and Brosnan didn't do 5. Yeah, I think Rob was actually talking about that the other day, about this like iconic long streak that Daniel Craig has been a phenomenal Bond. And look, I understand it's sacrilegious to say that your favorite Bond is anybody other than Sean Connery or Roger Moore. All due respect to Pierce Brosnan, Timothy Dalton, Lazenby, all due respect. But Daniel Craig is my favorite Bond because to me, and I've said this many times, to me, he's the embodiment of a hybrid of the suaveness of a Roger Moore Bond and the badassery of a Sean Connery Bond. He's both of those merged into one. And that's why he's been my personal favorite James Bond. So, yeah, there you go. Can't wait to see No Time to Die. NKS432 writes, favorite movie where the bad guy wins? For me, Fallen. Good one. But this movie is in my top 10 all-time favorite movies. Usual Suspects. Kaiser Soze. To me, since it's in my top 10 favorite movies of all time, and it's the only one I think in my top 10 movies of all time where the bad guy wins, I got to say that one. Yeah, that one. I mean, obviously, recently, Thanos in Infinity War, the movie where the bad guy wins. But all time, yeah, I still got to stick with Usual Suspects. Unusual Suspects is the one I got to go with. Sean Shackelford writes, if you're hungry for some Disney Plus original content, watch Timmy Failure. It's absolutely fantastic. No one is talking about. You know what's funny? At D23 last year, they did a big presentation on Timmy Failure, and I did not think it looked any good. To be honest with you, I almost completely forgot about it the moment I walked out of the Anaheim Convention Center. I didn't think it looked any good at all. But to be fair, I've heard a few people say they actually really like it. Not a lot of people. And I haven't heard anybody say that in a bit, but Sean, you're not alone. I'm hearing a few people saying it's actually not bad. I might give it a try. Again, though, the preview and the presentation they gave for it just did not make it look like it appealed to me at all. But again, you're not alone. I'm hearing some other people saying they like it. Thank you for putting that on everybody's radar, Sean. I appreciate that. All right, the Wakandan Forever writes, B for a day, Bruce Wayne or Tony Stark? Batman is by far my preferred character over Tony Stark and Iron Man, but Batman's really messed up. So I would be Tony Stark for a day. Batman, I prefer Batman over Iron Man, but if I had to be one of them for a day, I don't want to have to deal with the nightmares that, Bruce is really messed up. So I will be Tony Stark for a day. I will take Tony Stark for a day. All right. Sam Y writes, Carl, you just cursed. Not well, mind you, but you're a monk. You shouldn't curse at all. Actually, okay, I know what this is. Actually, I'm just a friar. I can curse all I want. The only reason I recognize this, because I never would have recognized this in a million years, is because just like a month or two ago, I was watching, because it was on one of the streamers, I was watching Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman. And what's the act? David Wenham? Is that how you say his last name? David Wenham. So that line was spoken. I'm just a friar, so I can curse all I want. It's the same guy who was like the bard in 300 who told the tale with the patch over his eye. He was also Faramir in the Lord of the Rings movies. He's great. And I never would have guessed this, except that was on, I caught a bit of it, and then me and my buddy actually talked for a minute about, oh yeah, he's the da-da-da, and that's the only reason I remember that. Otherwise, I totally wouldn't have remembered that one. All right, Wakandan Forever writes, my favorite film, Black Panther. Documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor. Boxer, Tommy Hearns. UFC fighters, Diaz Brothers. Cartoon, Thundercats. Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to say this, and I think it's going to get people upset. I think the Diaz brothers are overrated. I particularly think Nate Diaz is overrated. Nate Diaz is a great fighter who can beat anybody on any given day. Hell, he beat Conor McGregor when a lot of people thought Conor McGregor was unbeatable, right? He later lost to Conor McGregor, but still, he beat Conor McGregor. He is a dangerous, dangerous fighter, but he is not a top-tier UFC fighter. When you look at his record, he's just lost far too many fights to be considered a top-tier guy. Now, he's a dangerous guy and a danger to anybody he steps in the ring with because he can lose, but he could also win on any given day. And that's kind of speaks for both the Diaz brothers. The Diaz brothers are fabulous strikers, like great boxers in the ring, but they also carry worlds of swagger and worlds of personality. So yeah, I think that's part of the big reason though they're a lot of people's favorites for sure. And they're entertaining, dude. I mean, for no other reason, they're absolutely entertaining to watch and listen to. All right, let's see here. Matt Thornton writes, latest episode of the Clone Wars was epic. It's also highlighted Mace Windu's arrogance, big-headedness, and stupidity. Like Chris Harloff, I've always hated the character. Cannot wait for the finale. You know, it's funny because I hear some people who have been upset with this season because of the way they're treating the Mace Windu character. Again, I only saw episode 1 of the final season, and I do not believe Mace Windu was in it at all. So I have no commentary on how they're treating the Mace Windu character this season. I have no commentary because I just don't know. But that's actually one of the things I've heard some people say that bothers them about this season. But I haven't seen it, so I can't speak to it firsthand. But I'm glad you're enjoying it, Matt. All right, Brizzle writes, with Hercules announced, what live-action remake do you think will be next? Tarzan? Peter Pan? Pocahontas? My money is on Tarzan because I don't think there have been any big Tarzan movies recently. Actually, there has. Just a little while ago, Margot Robbie, Skarsgård was Tarzan. I think Christoph Waltz was the villain. Remember that? I think it's called Tarzan Lord of the Apes or something like that. It wasn't all that bad, actually. And Samuel L. Jackson was in it too. It's not all that, and that was only like 3 years ago, I think. Anyway, my money is on Tarzan because I don't think there have been any Tarzan movies recently. There have. And I think it was one of their successful films. Well, but here's the thing. Just because there was, in fact, another Tarzan movie not so long ago, remember, there have been 2 Hercules movies in like the last 10 years. And yet they're still doing, but neither of those Hercules movies were live action remakes of their animated counterparts, right? So this is another one of those situations. So just because there was a Tarzan one doesn't, by the way, how good is Phil Collins' soundtrack of that Tarzan movie? You'll be in my heart. I love the soundtrack of that one. And if it means getting Phil Collins back, I'll be all for it, Brizzle. All right, Nosferatu writes, commas matter, people. Pork the one you love. You have to have seen the John Campea Show earlier today to know what Nosferatu is referring to. But it's truly, truly true. Okay, Greg Corvin writes, does what Ahsoka say at the end of episode 11 mean that she is tied to Rogue One as well as Rebels? I cannot comment on that because I haven't seen it. So I apologize for that, Greg, but I haven't seen it, so I can't give an answer to that. My apologies, man. All right, Is the Third writes, do you think it is possible that some movie theaters can make their screen zero pressure rooms, change their ventilation systems into vacuums that sucks out germs along with new cleaning habits? I mean, I don't know. I don't know a lot about that. Like, I know some hospitals do that, I believe. I don't know a lot about that. But it seems to me, not that I know and not that I'm an expert in this, it seems to me that would be a really expensive endeavor for something that is a temporary problem. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's an easy thing to do, but it seems to me like it would probably be a really expensive thing to try to retrofit theaters to be that. And I just don't know that they have that kind of money. So I'm going to guess no, but again, it's only a guess. Somebody else who knows more about this might come and say, actually, John, it would be the easiest thing in the world. They could install it in a weekend and cost $100. If so, then they should absolutely do it. But yeah, I'm not really sure about this. It's a good question. All right. The system is used in a lot of hospitals. I'm assuming this is the third again. The system is used in a lot of hospital rooms, so why not this? It may cost a lot to upgrade the system, but if you want to help gain customer confidence, it would be a great thing to advertise. True, but again, depending how expensive, you could cripple. Like literally, there are some movie theaters that have like a ripped movie screen and they can't change it because they don't have the money to change it. Like, when I tell people that movie theaters are a very slim margin business, I'm not kidding. Like, you can have these movie theaters that have to pay like, $20 million a year in rent. Well, it's not that much, but you can have movie theaters that pay incredible things of this, and they can't afford to change a soda machine, or they can't afford to change out the screen because they literally, their margins are so razor thin. To do something that, if it is a huge cost, to invest a huge cost, which they can't afford, to solve a problem that is a temporary problem, whether temporary means 3 months or whether it means a year or 2 years, putting up the type of money that you would normally put up for something that would last a decade for that, I don't think theaters can afford it. But again, I don't know if it's a cheap thing. Maybe it's a super cheap thing and we're just all overthinking it. I don't know. Might be the case. All right. John Katz Curtis writes, "Hey, John, why wouldn't Magneto be Sokovian?" Okay. So here's why Magneto can't be Sokovian. So we were talking earlier about how you need to change Magneto's origin story, because it's just, time has just progressed now. We don't want a 90-year-old Magneto today. So you have to change his origin story from getting out of the concentration camps. But you still need an origin where he, as a child, in his very formative years, got to see the worst in humanity. So we've thrown out a couple of possibilities. Rwandan genocide. Maybe some of the more violent, harsh days during the civil rights movement in the United States. Other things, like maybe some more European things, like Slovakia or whatever. But Sokovia, the reason that doesn't work is because Sokovia was just recent. I mean, you need an event where you could say that as a child, Eric got to see the absolute, not just a horrible incident, but got to see firsthand the absolute worst in humankind. Nazi Germany, the concentration camps, that's perfect. The Rwandan genocide, perfect. Other major travesties like that. But it also goes back. So unless you want to say that Magneto is 10 years old today, it doesn't really work. So that's why I don't think Sokovian is a good application of that. That's just that's not to say that they couldn't come up with a good way to do it, but that's why I personally don't think that's the way to go. All right. Next up, an unnamed person writes in, "What's going to happen with the AMC theaters that's in City Walk? Awkward." We actually talked about that the other day, because at Universal City Walk here in Los Angeles, there's Universal Studios Park, which is connected to Universal City Walk, which you don't have to pay to get in that. It's just a big open thing with shops and restaurants and movie theaters. It's fantastic. I love Universal City Walk. But right in there is a big AMC theater. Here's the thing. Nothing will happen, because what's going on between Universal as a distributor of movies and AMC theaters as a theatrical exhibitor is a completely different issue than AMC as a leasing tenant and Universal as a landlord, in that they're two completely different issues with different sets of contracts. So the actual answer is, it's not going to have any sort of there's not going to be sort of any impact there. There's really not going to be any impact there. All right. Final question today, guys, comes to us from, and then we are all caught up, comes to us from Simon Blakemore, who writes, "I don't mind streaming films if it's for Oscar bait films, because I don't get a chance to see them because they're different days or times, and most of the time they're not in my area. They're not in my area, but I don't want to see box office films streaming." No, I agree. Like, a lot of Oscar bait films sometimes only have limited releases, and a lot of times they're movies that, even if you want to go out and see them, you really don't have the opportunity to go out and see them. But I am with you, Simon, 100%. To me, movies are meant to be seen in the movie. I agree with Quentin Tarantino and Christopher Nolan and, Spielberg, and I agree with them and Spike Lee, 1000%. Movies are made to be enjoyed in the atmosphere of a movie theater. on a real screen with real sound and an audience. And it's just the best way. And of course, I watch a lot of movies at home. Of course I do. But nothing beats the theatrical experience for me. And sometimes there's just no way around it. You can't, and that's cool. But yeah, so I'm with you. Not everybody feels the same way, and that's fine. Not everybody feels the same way, but I am with you on that one, Simon. That's the way it is for me. All right, guys. That'll do it for this installment of our companion videos. We are now all caught up on all the questions that we had right up until we had to shut out the John Campea Show earlier today. Don't forget, the channel is going to have open mic tomorrow. So on Saturday morning, we're going to have open mic. Again, you guys can send in your questions right now. Just go on over. You can see the tip link in the top of the description of this video, but you can just go over right now to streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. There you can support the channel and get your question on open mic tomorrow. And you can send one in anytime 24/7 over there, by the way, as well. Special thank you to all of you guys who did send in those questions because, number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported the channel while you did it. And all of us here at the John Campea YouTube channel, thank all of you guys so much for that very much. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for now. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, guys, bye-bye.